Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minutes With. I'm your host, Alex Alexander with Client Focus Media. Today, I'm really excited to bring Jonathan Wilson from the FinCEN Report Company. Find him online at FinCENReport.com. That's FINCEN Report.com. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alex. Glad to be here.
We're super glad to have you here. You and I, we've spoken before. We have another show. You happen to be an attorney. So we've been on the Ask the Attorney before. And you have a very specific kind of website. I really want to go through the purpose. So if you wouldn't mind walking us through what FinCEN Report is about and how you can help.
Absolutely. So FinCENReport.com is a tool to help small businesses and the investors in those small businesses prepare a new form that they're going to have to file with the government as a result of a new law that Congress passed. Now, the new law was passed by Congress in December of 2020, right after the election and before January 6th, so it was completely lost in the mainstream media. But this law was passed. It was vetoed by President Trump, and then Congress overcame the veto, so it has bipartisan support. And what this law does is it requires almost every private company in the United States to file a document with the U.S. Treasury Department through their subsidiary called FinCEN, which is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And what this report does is it discloses to the government the ownership of the company. So all of the investors that have any substantial control over the company, we need to list in this report their name, their date of birth, their home residential address, and we also need to provide a copy of a document that identifies them, like a passport photo or a driver's license. And what my company does is we help the investors and the small businesses compile all that data in a secure and confidential way so that they can file it with FinCEN on time and comply with the law, but at the same time keep that data secure and confidential so it doesn't get widely disseminated.
So this bill or law that passed, does it affect every small business?
It affects 25 million private companies in the United States. So there are some entities that are exempt, and these are entities that already have their ownership information on file with the government. So, for example, a publicly traded company, that's exempt. Banks are exempt. Insurance companies are exempt. There are a few other categories like that. But if you're a regular, ordinary U.S. business and you don't fall into one of the 23 special statutory exemptions, you are going to be required to file this document. And it's very important because the filing deadlines are quite strict, and there are penalties for missing the filing deadlines. At present, there's a $500 per day fine for missing your first filing deadline, and that fine continues every day until you catch up. And if the individuals who fail to file are doing so willfully or are filing information that they know to be incorrect, that can actually be a felony punishable with jail time. So it's something that business owners are going to have to really pay attention to going forward.
And so at this point, like you had mentioned, the law has passed, but there has been no start date or a date given to business owners as of yet to say you must file this and have these records available by this date. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. When Congress wrote the law, they directed FinCEN, this agency of the Treasury Department, to get the regulations completed by December 31 of 2021. Like the government often does, they missed their own deadline. But they did give us draft regulations, so we have an idea of what's going to be in there. But Congress really wants to get this done. We're watching the war in Ukraine, and we're aware that U.S. policy is to tamp down on Russian oligarchs trying to move their money out of Russia into the United States. Well, how do you track those flows of money? Well, you do it through things like this. When all the LLCs and corporations have to disclose their owners, that's how government's going to find out how the oligarchs and the cartels and people like that are moving their money around. So that's really the reason to get this done. And the reason why that's important is, even though FinCEN hasn't gotten the regulations done, they have gotten angry letters from Congress telling them to hurry up and get it done. In fact, no two characters other than Marco Rubio on the conservative side and Elizabeth Warren on the progressive side came together and co-wrote a letter to the executive director of FinCEN saying they needed to hurry up and get their regulations implemented. So my best guess is that somewhere in the next several months, FinCEN is going to finalize their regulations, and then we're going to have an effective date. And once that effective date kicks in, all previously existing U.S. companies that are not exempt are going to have 1 year to get their first report done. And any newly created company after that date has only 14 days to get their first report on file.
So would this be an ongoing thing, or do you have any information on this? Will this be an ongoing, like, annual report kind of thing going on after that?
Well, that's a great question. It's not an annual report. You only have to file it once. But if any item of information in the report changes, the company who filed the report has only 30 calendar days to file an amendment. So let's say, Alex, you and I have a company and we're 50-50 owners, and we do a good job. We get our report on file, and that includes our name, date of birth, residential address, and the driver's license. And after we file that report, you go and get a new driver's license. That's a new fact. You're going to have to update your report within 30 days after you get that new driver's license. And the thing is that that's not the kind of information that most normal people really keep track of, or they don't watch out for those sorts of deadlines. And that's the benefit that the FinCEN Report Company provides. We keep track of those things. We remind our customers about the upcoming deadlines, and we help them manage the information flows to make sure that they get their reports and their amendments filed on time so they can avoid those $500 per day penalties.
So in general, I'm sorry, in kind of a review at this point, right? I'm kind of running out of time here. I want to make sure everybody understands this. So if you own a business, or you're a partner, or you're a part of ownership of a business, you benefit from that business, then you need to make sure that you and these partners, these individuals, file a report. The quickest and easiest way to do this to date right now is to get with FinCENReport.com. You want to get with Jonathan Wilson. I'm sure he's available to answer some direct questions, I'm sure. But obviously, you can go to the FinCENReport.com and start the process. Again, if you are a business owner and this affects you, if you're not in that, with it 23, 25, whatever those categories are that are exempt, then you're going to have to start this process. And the only way that I know of, hell, I don't even know about this in general, is the fact that you can go to the FinCENReport.com and start that process. Very modest, small fee to take care of things, to make everything, everyone work. The flow is easier, but it's also going to be encrypted so that all your information is not out there in cyberspace. You're not emailing or faxing or whatever the information is you're trying to get across. So I want to thank Jonathan Wilson. Thank you very much for being on the show today. Thank everyone out there for tuning in to this episode of 5 Minutes With. Learning more information about FinCEN Report, you can go to FinCENReport.com. You can also find it at iwannabuzz.com. Do something good for yourself and do something good for others.